Well, we're now 6 episodes of Ahsoka in, and guys, we finally have a watchable episode. Now, the mainstream media is hailing this as great live action Star Wars, but great is a bit of an overstatement, and I'll tell you why as we get into this review. If you don't know who I am, I'm John Delarose. I am a professional science fiction writer, and I have been since 2016. And of course, I've written 18 novels, 12 graphic novels, and I know what I'm talking about here, much more than the writers they hire for something like Star Wars a lot of the time. And this is another instance where they just dragged things out far too long. Just to it seems like they're trying to get runtime out of it and make it something that should have been maybe a 2 hour movie and extend it into 8 hours of TV. That's a lot of extension, and that's exactly what we get throughout this entire series. Now, they've traveled to a new galaxy. At the beginning of this, they're still traveling. Ahsoka's on the space whales, and of course, the bad guys have their giant hyperdrive thing that takes them to another galaxy. And we're made to wait. And of course, they are promising that they're going to see Thrawn or whatnot. And there's these weird creatures who are like witches or something, and they're like, you must wait, and then they must wait, and that seems to be the name of the game of Ahsoka. You must wait, and so every episode so far has just been a very slow start, just slow talking dialogue, a lot of scenes where it's just one person at a green screen kind of just staring, and we get this in this episode too quite a bit. A lot of the cinematography, because of that, just comes across as like something that's being played in slow motion. It's very boring and it's very tough to watch a lot of the time. But at least something happens in this episode. I mean, we've got something that's so dragged out at this point. The introduction to the villain, who's of course, going to harm them and all that, should have come within the first 5-10 minutes of all of this. But nope. Here we are. And so we get this long drawn out scene where, of course, after Sabine Wren gets into prison and then fails to get out of prison and just stays in prison. And they say she reeks of Jedi, but for some reason she can't use the Force. So how does she reek of Jedi? I don't understand that. Whatever. And then Thrawn finally shows up. Now, it ends up being a pretty big disappointment, but at least this has a plot. And why I say this is watchable because at least that the big Imperial ship shows up. So you see the looming Empire. You see a bunch of stormtroopers. You get Thrawn. Thrawn casts out Sabine into the wilderness in order to in a place where it's dangerous and she's probably going to die. And then, of course, they just use all the familiar Star Wars tropes, but slower to do this. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with Ahsoka? And that's a great question. I've never seen a show that has a title character that's the main character who has less screen time, who doesn't do anything. This is really Sabine Wren's story. It's not about Ahsoka whatsoever, from what I've seen. Sabine Wren, the entire plot point is she wants to go find Ezra. I almost said Ezra Miller for a second. But she wants to go find Ezra. And then she does a bunch of weird stuff. She lets the bad guys win in order so she can get closer to potentially finding Ezra. And she just has faith that he's maybe alive or whatever. And that's it. It's her show. Ahsoka kind of follows her around periodically and shows up sometimes. But it's definitely not Ahsoka's show. Ahsoka is not the protagonist of this. So weird that they would do this. But this is Disney Star Wars. Their choices are odd. Now, Thrawn has a new right-hand man. Instead of having the captain that they have in the Heir to the Empire novels, who's a great character, they have this weird, Egyptian-looking stormtrooper with, looks like he has a shittily painted with spray paint mask on top of his stormtrooper armor. Okay. So why is somebody allowed to deface the stormtrooper armor like this, and why is this here? They try very hard to have new characters and new action figures all the time with Star Wars, and this one's quite the fail in design. Oh my gosh. So it happens, and what happens over the course of this when Sabine goes out into the wilderness, which Thrawn just lets her go out to the wilderness to try to find Ezra, says that he might be alive, he might be dead. This place has cannibals that eat each other out there. Oh no. And she goes out and she fights these weird alien looking creatures who I guess are supposed to be the cannibals. And it's a 115-pound girl beating up 10 different men. She starts out with this weird fight and she doesn't light her lightsaber or anything. She just takes hits for a while. and waits to light her lights. You know, it's like they were trying to extend the runtime. The action scene looks stupid and slow, and it's very weird watching this like 115-pound wine ant just like beat the crap out of all these like rugged aliens. It doesn't make any sense. Eventually, she does pull out her weapon, and then at least it makes a little bit more sense when she's using her weapon. I don't understand. And she takes off. Now, they're obviously Tusken Raiders, but re-skinned. They sound like Tusken Raiders. They act like Tusken Raiders. There's nothing new about this. There's nothing dynamic about it. And then she goes and finds these other weird little creatures who, like, kind of talk and are kind of quirky. They're totally Ewoks, but not Ewoks. Yes. It's like they have no original ideas for aliens or anything within Star Wars at this point. It's ridiculous. And so they eventually take her to this guy who is the live-action Ezra. And they have a super awkward meeting where the characters, like the cast, don't have chemistry together at all. I think the main Sabine actress, she might be a lesbian. I mean, she kind of looks like it. So it's kind of weird. And then they make a bunch of quirky jokes at each other that like really fall flat. And you don't have this like touching moment at all because, of course, you can't show normal heterosexual relationships in modern Disney TV. It just is not allowed. So that doesn't exist here. And then, of course, it cuts to Ahsoka and the episode ends. So that's it. She finds Ezra. She finds Thrawn a little bit. They talk with Thrawn. She talks with Ezra, kinda. I mean, they have to stop Thrawn from coming back and like reforging this new empire or whatever. But this should have been the opening scene of a movie where then Thrawn does take off. He starts to reforge his empire. They have their whole problem, and then they go back to the galaxy, rile up the rebellion, find some way to like handle Thrawn and deal with him despite having the great odds, and then that's how they win. That should have been the whole series or whole movie right there. Unfortunately, they didn't do it right. Now let's talk about Thrawn as a casting choice. So this is the voice actor who played Thrawn at the end of the day. And he, if you look at him, he just doesn't have the look of that gravitas of like this is the intense genius evil. He has the look of kind of like a doofus who is just kind of standing there and looking silly with scrawny arms and the like. It doesn't make for an imposing villain. And so while he might have had the good voice acting in the show and whatnot, bad casting choice for live action. It just didn't work out here. And the guy just does not have the look. And that is something that Hollywood, like, I don't understand a lot of the time. They used to be very cognizant of the look, but it seems like they're more cognizant and interested in, like, diversity hires and things like that these days than they are making sure that their films look good. And that's the deal. So this is where we're at this juncture. And it is a episode that, like I said, I mean, it is pretty slow and a lot of the beats missed, but it was at least watchable. At least something happened in it. This is the first time we've seen this out of 6 full episodes where it's like, oh gosh, at least something occurred. And that's the bar at this point for Disney Star Wars. Did something even happen in the episode? Very sad to watch. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure to check out my bookstore, which is delarose.com right here /store. And if you guys want to get my books, check out my science fiction. It's right here. If you like Star Wars, you might want to try the Nano Templar series, Justified. It's also available on Amazon, of course. And these are going to be a lot more action-packed, a lot more fun for you than the current year Star Wars is. Got a store, got an Amazon page. All those links are in the description below. And I've got a subscribe star if you want to support the channel too. That's kind of the main thing I want to get going forward. I'd love to just release all my content on there for you guys and stay off of these other platforms. That's another rant for another time. But please go check these out and support us. Really appreciate you guys for being there. See you soon.